She said she needed space. I gave her trust. She gave me betrayal. Funny how the smallest changes whisper the loudest warnings. It wasn't a fight. It wasn't a sudden cold shoulder or screaming match. No. It was silence. A different kind of silence. The kind that wraps around your throat slowly, one quiet moment at a time, until one day you wake up and realize you don't recognize the person sleeping next to you. My name's Nicholas. I'm 38, live in Denver, and until recently, I thought I had it all figured out. A good job doing graphic design. A decent apartment. A dog named Baxter who thinks he owns the place. And a girlfriend, Sabrina, who, on the surface, checked every box. For a while, things were good. Easy, even. Late-night Netflix marathons. Sunday brunch. Inside jokes about terrible coffee shops. We were the couple people looked at and said, now that's love. But love doesn't die with a bang. It rots, quietly. It started when she changed her phone's passcode. Then came the late-night work calls. The sudden need for space. And finally, the name that would break everything, Derek. This isn't just a story about infidelity. It's about something deeper. About how betrayal isn't always a scream in the night, it's a slow leak in the foundation of your sanity. It's about how I didn't just lose the woman I loved. I almost lost myself. This isn't some cheap revenge tale. This is about identity. About the way betrayal fractures you, splits you into pieces you don't even recognize. I gave Sabrina everything, my home, my time, my loyalty, my future. And in return, I became her placeholder. Her backup plan. Her emotional crutch until someone better came back into her life. But here's the twist she didn't expect. I'm not the man you betray and forget. I'm the man who watches, waits, and learns. The man who sets the perfect trap. What I discovered was worse than cheating. It wasn't just another man. It wasn't just a broken heart. It was a betrayal that cut through everything I stood for, my values, my career, my security. And when the truth came out, well, let's just say, she had no idea who she was messing with. So if you're reading this thinking, I'd never fall for that. Trust me, I said the same thing. But sometimes, the people closest to you are the ones sharpening the knife behind your back. And when you finally catch them red-handed, that's when the real story begins. Thank you for staying till the end. If this hit home, drop a 1 in the comments, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Let's heal stronger, together. Sabrina came into my life the way most big things do, quietly, then all at once. We met at a friend's holiday party 2 years ago. She was standing in the kitchen, holding a glass of red wine, laughing at something no one else had heard. Her laugh was real. Unfiltered. That's what drew me in. She wasn't trying too hard. She wasn't guarded or polished like everyone else in the room. She just was. We started talking. That led to a few dates, then weekends together, then moving in 6 months later. It all felt natural, like pieces falling into place. She worked in marketing, good at her job, driven, articulate. I admired that about her. I still do, even now, though I hate to admit it. For a long time, we had that rare kind of comfort you don't question. The kind where silence doesn't feel awkward, and plans don't need to be made in advance. We cooked dinner together. We shared music playlists. We had our rituals, Thai takeout on Fridays, lazy mornings with coffee and crossword puzzles. I thought we were building something real. But real things don't just disappear. They erode. And the worst part is, you don't even notice until you're standing in the ruins. Looking back, I can tell you the moment things began to shift, though at the time, I brushed it off as nothing. It started with her phone. Not something dramatic, just subtle. Sabrina used to leave her phone everywhere. Kitchen counter, coffee table, even the bathroom sometimes. She never cared who saw it. We even shared passcodes, not out of necessity, just habit. trust. But one day, I noticed it was always face down. Then it started following her everywhere, into the bathroom, under her pillow at night, even when she went to get the mail. And when I picked it up once to check the weather, she flinched. "Use yours," she said quickly. Too quickly. I laughed it off. "Mine's charging." She didn't smile. She just stared at me. That moment lodged itself in my brain like a splinter. I couldn't shake it. But I told myself I was being ridiculous. Everyone's protective of their phones these days, right? But then came the late-night texts. The early morning alarms she'd silence and tuck under the covers. And slowly, like a curtain being drawn across a window, she began to pull away. She stopped asking about my day. Stopped making time for the little things. The inside jokes faded. Conversations got shorter. Eye contact got rarer. It was like living with someone who had already left. And every time I started to speak up, to say something, that voice in my head whispered, "Don't be dramatic. She's probably just stressed. Don't make this a thing." But deep down, I knew. You always know. You just lie to yourself a little longer, because the truth is too painful to face. I tried to shake it off. I told myself people grow distant sometimes. Maybe work was overwhelming. Maybe she was dealing with something she hadn't talked to me about yet. Maybe she just needed space, like she said. And for a while, I believed that. Because I wanted to believe it. It's easier to rationalize than to sit with the weight of doubt. Easier to say, "She's just tired," than to admit that the woman you love might be drifting into someone else's arms. And if I'm being honest, I was afraid. Afraid that once I pulled that thread, everything would unravel. So instead, I folded into the routine. I made dinner like usual. Laughed at her forced smiles. Waited for her to come back to me, like she always had before. But she didn't. The shift wasn't loud, but the silence screamed. Some nights, I'd lie next to her and feel like we were on opposite sides of a glass wall. She was inches away, but unreachable. She stopped touching me in small ways, no hand on my shoulder, no kiss on the cheek, no late-night whispers. And still, I told myself, don't overthink it. But I couldn't help it. The signs were stacking up like bricks. The secrecy. The withdrawal. The defensiveness when I asked even the smallest question. And that name, Derek. The one she never mentioned, but always lingered in her history. I saw it flash on her phone once. A text that vanished before I could read it. Just a name. Just enough to gut me. Was I imagining things? Was I losing my mind? Or worse? Was I the last one to know the truth everyone else had already figured out? That question looped in my head like a broken record. And when someone you love makes you feel like the crazy one for noticing the shift they created, that's when you know something's really, really wrong. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Thursday. Ordinary in every way that mattered, until it wasn't. Sabrina had just stepped into the shower. I was on the couch, flipping through channels without really watching anything. The room was dim, the only light coming from the muted TV and the street lamps outside filtering through the blinds. That's when her phone buzzed on the coffee table. Once. Twice. 3 times in rapid succession. The screen lit up in the dark room like a spotlight, and in that brief second, I saw the name. Derek. Each message came from him. No emojis. No preview text. Just his name in bold, over and over again. It was like time slowed. The blood drained from my face, my hands suddenly clammy. My heartbeat thumped in my ears like a warning siren. I reached for the phone. Slowly. Carefully. Like it might explode if I moved too fast. I didn't even think, my hand just moved. The screen lit up again as I held it. I tapped to open the message. Passcode required. I froze. She had changed it. It hit me all at once, how long it had been since I'd even seen her unlock her phone. When had that happened? When did we stop sharing something so small, so basic? We used to know each other's codes. Not because we were snooping, because we had nothing to hide. Now, suddenly, I wasn't allowed in. Not even to check the weather. Not even to silence an alarm. And as I sat there, holding that phone in my hand, hearing the water still running behind the closed bathroom door, I realized something I didn't want to admit. I was already too late. This wasn't a maybe anymore. It wasn't a hunch. It was a truth, and it was staring me in the face. I heard the shower turn off. Water pattered to silence behind the door, followed by the familiar squeak of the faucet handle. My fingers were still wrapped around her phone, but I quickly set it back down exactly where I found it, screen dark, untouched, like nothing had happened. By the time she stepped into the living room wrapped in a towel, I had already planted myself on the couch, TV remote in hand, pretending to scroll through Netflix. "Hey," I said, keeping my tone light. "Your phone's been going off." She paused in the doorway, mid-step. It was just for a second, but I saw it. That flash of hesitation in her eyes before she walked over and scooped the phone up without a word. "Oh. Thanks," she said, too quickly. She looked at the screen, tapped it once, then slid the phone into her pocket. Her face gave nothing away, but her body was stiff. Closed off. I forced a smile. "Mind if I borrow your phone real quick? Just want to check the weather." A stupid excuse. I knew it. She knew it. Her shoulders tensed. "Why don't you use your own?" she snapped, voice sharp. Too sharp for something so small. I blinked. "I would, but it's charging in the bedroom." "Thought yours was closer." Her eyes narrowed. "What's this really about, Nicholas?" I hesitated. "I just noticed you changed your passcode." She folded her arms across her chest. "So you tried to go through my phone?" "Seriously?" "No, I just..." "You just what?" "Thought you had the right to invade my privacy?" Her voice was rising now. Accusatory. Defensive. "I wasn't snooping," I lied. You've been acting different lately." "You know what, Nicholas," she snapped. This is exactly why I need privacy." She stormed into the bedroom, leaving me standing there, stunned. It hit me like whiplash, how fast everything had flipped. One minute I had every right to be suspicious, and the next, I was the villain. I sank into the couch, trying to gather my thoughts, but they came at me in broken pieces: anger, sadness, confusion, shame. Was I wrong for looking? Was I being paranoid? Or was I finally seeing things for what they really were? Every red flag I had ignored came flooding back all at once. The distant glances. The cold responses. The guarded phone. The name, Derek, echoing in my head like a warning shot. And now, somehow, I was the bad guy. I had walked into the room with a knot in my gut and walked out with 1,000 knots in my chest. My mind was racing, trying to connect dots that were suddenly, painfully obvious. She was hiding something. That much was clear. But what scared me most was how good she was at making me feel like I was the one who broke the trust. I sat there in silence, listening to drawers open and close in the bedroom, her footsteps moving in frustration. And all I could think was, how the hell did we get here? The fight didn't end. It just went quiet. She retreated to the bedroom, slamming the door behind her. I stayed on the couch, too exhausted to follow. We barely spoke for the rest of the night. No apologies. No explanations. Just two strangers under the same roof pretending everything was fine. But something shifted in me. I had spent weeks tangled in confusion, doubting my instincts, second-guessing every emotion, wondering if I was the problem. Now, I felt strangely clear. Sabrina was hiding something. Maybe Derek. Maybe more. But she'd done just enough damage control to make me hesitate, to keep me unsure. Not anymore. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to accuse her again. I'd already played that game and lost. So I decided to do the one thing she never expected. Nothing. At least, nothing she could see. I stopped asking questions. I smiled when she got home late. I kissed her goodnight without pressing for conversation. And just like that, the wall between us didn't feel like a prison anymore. It felt like a disguise. A few nights later, she walked into the kitchen while I was chopping vegetables for dinner. She was dressed casually, hair still damp from a shower, voice light, too light. "Hey," she said, sliding her phone onto the counter between us. "If it'll make you feel better, go ahead. You can look." I didn't say a word at first. Just blinked. "You sure?" I asked carefully. "Yeah," she shrugged, acting nonchalant. "I have nothing to hide." I dried my hands, picked up the phone. No passcode prompt, it was already unlocked. I scrolled. Messages? Clean. Call log? Quiet. Photos? Normal. Even her group chats were scrubbed. It was like looking into a museum display, everything arranged perfectly, but no life behind the glass. She watched me closely, like a magician daring the audience to find the trick. "See," she said, voice almost smug. "Happy now?" I handed the phone back, face unreadable. "Yeah," I said, nodding. "Thanks." But deep down, I wasn't convinced. Not because of what I found, but because of what I didn't. Everything was too clean. Too perfect. And that's when I realized. She wasn't just hiding the truth anymore. She was preparing for war. Later that night, after Sabrina fell asleep with her back turned to me, I lay there staring at the ceiling, phone in hand, heart thudding like a warning drum. I wasn't crazy. I knew that now. But knowing wasn't enough. I needed proof. I opened her messages again. Thankfully, she hadn't thought to log out of anything. The thread with Derek was gone. Deleted, just like I expected. But his name was still in her contacts. And that was all I needed. I clicked his name, typed slowly, deliberately, pretending to be her. "I think Nicholas is over it. Can we meet tomorrow?" I stared at the screen for a second before hitting send. My thumb hovered over the back button, nerves chewing at my gut. What if he didn't reply? What if she had told him to stop? What if? The phone vibrated. New message. From Derek. "Let's have fun. Same place. 7 p.m. Blue Ridge Motel." Just like that, the entire truth fell into place with one line. It wasn't just a fling. It was routine. Familiar. Rehearsed. This wasn't a mistake. It was a lifestyle. I didn't say anything that night. Didn't wake her. Didn't even move. I just took a screenshot, set the phone back down, and waited for morning. She found me in the kitchen, calm, casual, chopping vegetables again. Same cutting board. Same quiet music playing from the speaker. But everything had changed. She leaned against the counter. "Morning," she said. "Sleep okay?" I handed her the phone without a word. Her smile faltered. Then faded completely. She looked down. First at the message I'd sent. Then at the reply from Derek. I watched the color drain from her face like blood retreating from a wound. Her fingers trembled just slightly. Her mouth opened, then closed. For once, she didn't have a line ready. No spin. No script. Nothing. That silence. That was louder than any confession. She looked up at me, eyes wide. "This isn't what it looks like," she whispered. I didn't flinch. Because this time, I wasn't reacting. I was watching. And she knew. The game was over. The phone was still in her hand when I asked, calmly but firmly, "How long has this been going on?" She didn't answer right away. Her eyes flicked to the screen again, then to me, searching for some version of me that might still believe her, still be willing to look the other way. But I just stood there. Waiting. The silence stretched. The music playing in the background, some lo-fi beat I'd put on without thinking, suddenly felt wrong. Out of place in a moment like this. She took a breath. Then another. And finally, she spoke. "I didn't plan for this," she said, her voice low. "It just happened." I shook my head. "You don't just happen to meet someone at a motel, Sabrina." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "It wasn't like that at first," she said. "He reached out months ago. Just to talk. I didn't think it would turn into anything." "But it did," I said, the words bitter in my throat. She looked away. "I don't know why I let it go on. That was a lie." She did know. And I think part of her knew that I knew it too. I asked her if it ever actually stopped, her talking to him. She didn't even try to deny it. "I never really stopped," she admitted, eyes glued to the floor. "Even when I moved in with you. Even when things were good between us. The worst part?" She didn't even sound guilty. Just tired. Like this was an emotional burden she had been carrying, and now I was finally letting her set it down. "You told me you wanted to start over," I said, struggling to keep my voice level. "You cried in my arms, Sabrina. Said he broke your heart. That you were done with him." "I was done with what he did to me," she whispered. "But I wasn't done with him." And that was the moment it clicked. She hadn't come back because she missed me. She hadn't moved in because she wanted us to work. She came back because Derek left her, again. And I was the one who still loved her enough to catch her when she fell. I wasn't her partner. I was her cushion. Her recovery plan. Her plan B. She kept talking, but I barely heard the rest. Some mix of half-truths and half-apologies. All I could think about was every time I had stood by her. Every time I had believed she was healing. Every time I thought we were rebuilding something real. Turns out, she had just been waiting. Waiting to see if Derek would come back. Waiting to see if he wanted her again. And the moment he did, she was ready to leave me behind like none of it ever mattered. The truth hit harder than I expected. Not because it was surprising, but because I'd already lived it. I started replaying the moment she came back into my life like a film I'd seen before but never understood. Now, every detail took on a darker tone. She showed up at my door late one night, 2 months after we'd broken up. Her mascara was smudged. Her voice was shaking. She said she was sorry. Said she'd been stupid. Said she realized what we had was real. I still remember her exact words. "You were always the safe place I ran from, and now I just want to come home." I opened the door. Just like that. She cried in my arms that night, her body trembling against mine like she was falling apart. Back then, I thought it was healing. Now I see it for what it really was, a performance. She didn't cry because she loved me. She cried because she didn't know where else to go. And I was just stupid enough to believe it was love. As I stood in the kitchen now, watching her squirm in the wake of her exposed betrayal, I felt something deeper than anger. I felt used. I thought I had been building a life with someone who wanted the same things I did: stability, growth, partnership. But I wasn't her future. I was her emotional landing pad. A place to crash when her fantasy fell apart. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. She hadn't been distant because she was overwhelmed. She was distant because she was comparing me. Every hug, every conversation, every silence between us, it wasn't grief, it was calculation. She wasn't wondering how to fix us. She was waiting for him. And now that he wanted her again, she was ready to discard me like I'd never mattered. Like I was just the filler between her episodes of chaos. I looked at her, still clutching her phone like it might save her, and I realized something with perfect clarity. She didn't break my heart tonight. That happened months ago. Tonight, I just finally felt it. 2 days passed. We barely spoke. Sabrina moved through the apartment like a ghost, quiet, distant, always on her phone but never making eye contact. She didn't ask for forgiveness, and I didn't offer her the space to pretend she deserved it. I thought I'd already seen the worst of it. But then came the call. I was at my desk, half distracted with a client logo revision when my phone buzzed. It was my bank, fraud protection. "Hi, Mr. Avery," the rep said. "We noticed an attempted wire transfer this morning from your business account. The amount flagged our system." My stomach dropped. "What amount?" I asked. $8,400, she replied. "It was requested via online banking. Do you recognize this transaction?" I didn't. I hadn't touched that account in days. And I already knew who had. I hung up, heart pounding, opened my laptop, and checked the login records. There it was, access from our apartment IP at 7:42 a.m. While I was still in bed. While she was making coffee in the kitchen, humming like nothing had happened. Rage and disbelief tangled in my chest like barbed wire. She hadn't just cheated on me, she had tried to rob me. Not metaphorically. Not emotionally. Literally. She still had access to the business account I set up when we moved in together, back when I thought she'd be involved in helping me grow the freelance side of things. I'd even ordered her a debit card just in case. Apparently, she'd kept it just in case she decided to burn my life to the ground. And now it all made sense. The sudden interest in our finances a few months back. The casual "what do you keep in your business account?" questions. The night she offered to help with bookkeeping and I brushed it off. She hadn't been planning a future with me. She was casing the place. A slow, methodical setup, play the role of supportive partner, regain trust, buy time. Then gut me when I wasn't looking. This wasn't just infidelity. It was theft. It was betrayal on a level I hadn't even considered. And as I sat there staring at the failed transaction log, one chilling thought buried itself into my gut. If I hadn't caught her texting Derek, would I have ever known? Or would she have drained my account, disappeared into the night, and left me broke, blindsided, and wondering what I did wrong? I didn't wait long. She came home around 5 that evening, keys jingling in the lock like nothing had changed, like she still lived here, like she still belonged here. I stood in the hallway, arms crossed, laptop open on the console table. The bank transaction screen still lit, time-stamped and undeniable. She froze the second she saw my face. "What's going on?" she asked, a slight edge in her voice. That same voice she used when she felt cornered. Calculating. Testing the air for weakness. "You tried to transfer $8,000 from my business account this morning," I said flatly. Her mouth opened, but I didn't give her the chance. "Don't lie. I saw the login, the IP address, the exact time. You were in the kitchen. You knew I was still asleep." Her face paled. "It was just to get out." The words were colder than I expected. No yelling. No drama. Just the dead quiet of someone who's finally finished. She blinked. "What?" I didn't repeat myself. I didn't need to. "Take whatever you came with," I said. "Nothing more. Don't make this uglier than it already is." And for the first time since the truth unraveled, I saw it. Panic. Real panic. But she didn't fight. Maybe because she knew she couldn't spin it anymore. Maybe because she saw in my eyes that the door she used to manipulate me was now shut for good. She packed a small bag in silence. No apologies. No closure. Just a look on her face like she'd lost something valuable and didn't know how. And when the door clicked shut behind her, I exhaled. But it didn't feel like relief. It felt like silence after an explosion. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, lights off, staring into the space she used to fill. My mind knew I'd done the right thing. She had lied, cheated, nearly emptied my account. And yet, my chest ached. Why do I still miss her? Why does part of me still crave the feeling of her head on my shoulder, her voice in the kitchen, the ghost of our routine? It made no sense. I wasn't mourning her. I was mourning the idea of her. The version I'd built in my head, the loyal partner, the best friend, the woman I thought I'd grow old with. But that version never existed. Still, grief doesn't care about logic. It's not linear. It's not fair. It lingers in the corners, dressed in memories that feel too beautiful to be fake. And in that moment, I understood something no one talks about. You can be completely right. And still be completely heartbroken. The first few days after she left were numb. I didn't cry. Didn't yell. Didn't smash anything like people in movies do when they're betrayed. I just shut down. But little by little, I began pulling myself out of it. I started therapy, twice a week. At first, I just sat in the chair and stared at the floor, giving one-word answers. But over time, I opened up. I talked about the betrayal, sure, but also about the guilt. The part of me that hated how much I still missed her, even after everything. I picked up my sketchbook again. It had been over a year since I'd drawn anything for myself, outside of client work. I didn't realize how much I missed it until I found myself sketching for hours in silence, letting my mind breathe. I reconnected with old friends I'd pushed aside during the relationship, grabbed coffee, caught up, admitted things I hadn't been ready to say out loud until now. It was slow. Uneven. But it felt like the beginning of something real. And then, just when I thought the worst was behind me, my phone rang. Blocked number. I almost let it go to voicemail. But something in my gut told me to answer. Hello? There was a pause. Then a voice I hadn't heard in years. Hey. It's Derek. At first, I thought it was a prank. I nearly hung up. But his voice was serious. Tired. Hollow in a way I hadn't expected. I just wanted to say, he started, I didn't know about all of it. Until recently. I didn't respond. She told me you were abusive, he continued. Said you were controlling. That you'd cut her off from everything. That she was scared of you. I closed my eyes. She used you the same way she used me, Derek said. But she made it sound like you were the one doing the damage. Silence stretched between us, thick and ugly. I only found out the truth when she slipped up, he said. Said something that didn't line up. That's when I went looking. He paused. I saw the motel text. She showed it to me, after you sent it pretending to be her. My chest tightened. She told me you were stalking her. That you were trying to ruin her life. But the more I dug, the more I realized she was feeding both of us stories. Using us to make each other look like the villain. He let out a long breath. I just thought you should know. And before I could say anything, the line went dead. I sat there with the phone still pressed to my ear, even after the line went dead. Not because I expected him to call back. But because I was too stunned to move. Abusive. Controlling. Scary. Those were the words she used to describe me. To Derek. To God knows who else. She hadn't just betrayed me emotionally or financially, she'd rewritten our entire history in her favor. And I never even saw it coming. It was brilliant, in a dark, twisted way. If Derek ever started asking questions, she would already be the victim. If I ever exposed the truth, she would be the one people rushed to defend. I could already imagine it. She said he was obsessive. She said he used money to control her. She said she wasn't allowed to have friends. I had seen these kinds of manipulation tactics online. Reddit threads. Psychological abuse articles. Case studies. But never, not once, did I think I'd be the one they were written about. Sabrina didn't just cheat. She built an escape route that made sure I looked like the monster in every version of the story. And now I wasn't just angry. I was humiliated. The worst part wasn't even what she said. It was that for a while. I believe some of it might be true. Because when someone you love starts making you feel like your sanity is slipping, that your instincts are off, that your questions are attacks, it doesn't take long before you start questioning yourself. I remembered every time I'd apologized for making her uncomfortable. For overreacting when she disappeared for hours. For bringing up Derek's name. For asking about her phone. For noticing the silence growing louder every week. She didn't need to scream or threaten or call me names. She just tilted the narrative. One small angle at a time, until I was doubting my own reflection in the mirror. That's what gaslighting does. It doesn't just lie to you. It turns your own voice into static. Looking back, I can see it so clearly now. All the times I walked away from an argument feeling guilty, even when she was the one hiding things. All the moments I tried harder to be a better partner, while she tightened the emotional leash. And now, with everything out in the open, I wasn't just grieving the relationship. I was grieving who I had been inside it. The man who bent himself into a shape she could accept, only to be thrown away the second she wanted someone else. There was no epiphany. No dramatic moment when I stood in front of the mirror and declared I'd take my life back. It was quieter than that. Slower. It started with small things. Washing the dishes without feeling that weight in my chest. Sleeping through the night without checking the door or the phone. Breathing, fully, without that ever-present knot of dread beneath my ribs. I dove back into my work. Harder than ever. I restructured my design business, fired a few toxic clients, raised my rates. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't chasing approval, I was building something for me. I also changed the locks. Closed the joint accounts. Got a new phone number. Set boundaries that weren't open for discussion. And I started filling my life again, on my terms. I painted. I read. I met with other freelancers for coffee and conversation that didn't revolve around tiptoeing around someone else's mood swings. Day by day, I stopped feeling like a man who'd been betrayed. And started feeling like a man who'd been reborn. Of course, there were days I wanted to disappear. I still remember one night, maybe 2 weeks after Derek's call, when I sat on the bathroom floor with the lights off, just me, my thoughts, and the sound of my own breathing. I wasn't crying. I wasn't panicking. I was just empty. The kind of emptiness that doesn't scream. It just waits. And yet, even there, in that dark, quiet moment, I felt something shift. I didn't want to go back. Not to her. Not to who I was when I was with her. I wanted to move forward, even if I had to crawl. So I stood up, brushed my teeth, and went to bed. That was it. No hero moment. Just a choice. The next morning, I drew something for the first time in weeks, a sketch of a wolf walking alone through a snowstorm, head low, but moving forward. I didn't show it to anyone. But it sits in a frame on my bookshelf now. A reminder of who I became when no one was watching. Of the man I chose to be, even when no one was clapping. Eventually, I stopped waiting for the apology that would never come. There was a time I thought closure had to come from the person who hurt you. That one day, maybe she'd message me, say she was sorry, say she lied, say I didn't deserve what she did. But that message never came. And one morning, as I poured my coffee and watched the sun push through the blinds, I realized something. I didn't need it anymore. Closure isn't about understanding why they hurt you. It's about understanding that their choices had nothing to do with your worth. So I let it go, not in a dramatic, cinematic way, but in a quiet, final one. No more looking at old pictures. No more wondering if she missed me. No more replaying what I should have said. She was gone. And I wasn't chasing her ghost anymore. I had clarity now, not from anything she gave me, but from everything she took. The things I learned from her betrayal weren't easy. They weren't the kind of life lessons you put on a bumper sticker or turn into a motivational quote. They were scarred into me, through nights I couldn't sleep, conversations I replayed 1,000 times, and a mirror that didn't feel like mine anymore. But they stayed. And they shaped me. First lesson? Trust your gut. Every time I felt something was off, I ignored it. I rationalized it. I gave her the benefit of the doubt, over and over again. I told myself love meant patience, understanding, forgiveness. But real love doesn't need to be defended against your instincts. Now, if something feels off, I listen. I don't need proof to value my own perception. Second lesson: protect your peace. You can love someone with everything you have and still lose yourself in the process. That's not love. That's self-abandonment. I thought being a good partner meant compromising, being flexible, forgiving, emotionally available. And while that's true, it should never come at the cost of your mental clarity or dignity. I used to make excuses for her silence, her moods, her distance. I called it understanding. But all I was really doing was slowly shrinking myself to avoid conflict. Now, peace isn't just something I hope for, it's a non-negotiable. Third lesson: never beg for loyalty. If someone has to be convinced to stay faithful, to be honest, to show up fully in the relationship, then they were never really there to begin with. I learned that the hard way. I stayed loyal while she was busy lining up her next option. I gave everything to someone who had already decided I wasn't enough. But that wasn't a reflection of me. That was a reflection of her. And once I saw that clearly, I made a promise to myself. I will never again try to prove my worth to someone who doesn't recognize it. Because loyalty isn't something you chase. It's something that should be given freely, or not at all. So now I want to ask you something. What would you do if you caught your partner lying? Not just with their body, but with your trust, your time, your future? What if the betrayal wasn't loud or obvious, but slow and calculated, like a drip in the ceiling you didn't notice until the whole thing collapsed? Would you confront them with anger? Would you demand answers that you already knew would be lies? Or would you do what I did? Stand there, steady and quiet, and let the truth speak for itself? Betrayal doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes, it comes with a smile. A half-truth. A perfectly timed excuse. And by the time you realize it, the damage is already done. So, if you've ever been there, or if you're standing in that quiet suspicion right now, ask yourself. Are you holding on to love? Or are you holding on to the idea of someone who never existed? I used to think betrayal would break me. But now I know. Some betrayals don't break you. They build you. They crack the illusion wide open and force you to rebuild from the foundation. Not weaker, but wiser. Sabrina didn't just teach me what love isn't. She taught me what I will never again tolerate. And the silence that followed her exit? That was the loudest kind of freedom. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's no longer needing to. Sometimes, letting go isn't losing. It's winning your life back. So if you're still waiting for closure, still holding your breath for answers, stop. Exhale. You don't need their permission to move forward. You only need your own.